matter the medium, we all have characters, stories, universes that we're passionate about. Worlds in which only the mention of a name, an image, or a few music notes invoke unforgettable memories. Wait, I need to watch this again. Ah, that feels good. Okay, let's move on. Reminding us even of where we were in our lives when we discovered it. Like most of you probably, I cherish many of these worlds. But there's a name that often comes out of the pack. A name that, again and again, and despite its highs and its lows, has always made me dream since my cousins introduced me to it. This name has taken the habit since its creation to revolutionize the video gaming universe, of making the hundreds of millions of people who played it laugh, cry, and putting them through unforgettable experiences. This name, I hope you guessed it, is Final Fantasy. And like many respected franchises, it had to start somewhere. No, stop messing already! Oh my god! Why? In the 80s, a young Hironobu Sakaguchi is making games for a young company called Square. Thing is, his games don't sell, and his career is going nowhere fast. But despite all this, he always has an idea in mind, getting inspiration from games like Wizardry and Ultima to make his own role-playing game. But his bosses just don't see it work. Until their rival Enix released Dragon Quest and made Yuji Horii Japan's darling. When our mustached game developer asks his boss for permission again, they look at Enix's office and they go, "Why you wait, Enix?" And they accept. The game will have the initials FF because it's the in thing at the moment. Yes, it is the reason they recently confirmed. And since fighting fantasy is already taken, they have to choose something else. It might be because Square has huge financial problem or the fact that Sakaguchi might go back to university if it doesn't work. They decided to name the game Final Fantasy. To draw the characters and monsters, Sakaguchi chose an artist who is the complete opposite of Dragon Quest Akira Toriyama, Yoshitaka Amano. On the music side of things, Square employee Nobuo Uematsu will get his time to shine by writing a legendary soundtrack. A habit he will keep for every single game he will touch from now on. All this nice package will release on the Japanese NES on December 18, 1987, and 2.5 years later in America. These years will cause what will later be known as the Final Fantasy Number Wars. The world of Final Fantasy is literally in peril, because the crystals generating the elemental forces of nature are losing their light. The wind stops, the seas rage, the land rots, and fire? Well, fire's okay actually. But a prophecy says that 4 warriors of light will set forth to bring back peace, each one of them having a crystal in hand. Or an orb in the American version. Now it's time to plug in the important stuff that I didn't know what to put in my script, but I still have to talk about it because it's important, so I'll talk about it now so it will be done with already. As I will be talking mostly about a remake in this video, I'll tell you the major changes that have been done to it. Starting with the fighting screen in boxes, with this stripe as a background and the shortened name spell like NES memory space. But the big change is mostly the inventory management that was changed, as in the original, items, weapons and armor each had their own small inventory. As in the remake, it's all the weapons, armor and cabins all in the same bag. Also, if you wanted to buy 20 potions, you had to buy them one by one. Fun. And when you buy weapons and armor, nothing tells you who can equip what and which piece of equipment is better. To finish up with these details, I played the PlayStation remakes, which, besides the enhanced graphics, music, translation and all the changes I just mentioned, is mostly the same as the original. I played on normal difficulty setting and deactivated all the changes, which includes this small icon telling you that the circle button is used to cancel. Useful! Also, just to calm down the purists out there, almost all the games coming up in the next videos will be original versions, and not remakes. Just let me have a little bit of fun while I still can, okay? Please? But the real start of the game is like the RPG of RPGs of the time. Dungeons and Dragons. You start by creating 4 Warriors of Light by giving them a name and one of 6 job classes. A tank, some dude who punches sharks in the face, a thief who can't steal yet, a black mage, master of the element, a healing white mage, and the red mage who can do everything but can't master anything at all. You can have any combination you want, but just know that once your classes are chosen, it never changes after that. You're stuck with these 4 guys for the whole game, so just make sure that they are what you want. Personally, in this playthrough, I named my 4 zeros names my cousins and their friend gave their Dungeons and Dragons characters. And I gave myself a challenge by ignoring the white mage, who's pretty much a walking stick through the dungeons. But seriously, a white mage is pretty much like a bottle of rum. It's good to have one here and there, but with only white mages you won't move very fast, if you know what I mean. So, when you have a team, you literally appear in the world and, hey, a town and a castle. Let's go there. You go see the king, the warriors show their crystals like a business card, and he asks them to save his princess from a rogue knight named Goblin, which is done within the first hour of the game, like we did within the first whole half of Dragon Quest. In exchange, the king builds a bridge so that the heroes can continue on with their quest. But your town is pretty much isolated from the rest of the world. Shouldn't you build a bridge anyway? Or did they take their king's bunch of In fact, that built bridge is also what could have been done by the king in the first Dragon Quest. The remake even shows him how to do it. Am I overrating it, or... Erdrick is also known as Roto in Dragon Quest. Okay, so I don't think so. To add to that, when you go on that bridge, you have one last view over Cornelia, telling you that your adventure is just beginning. And the original get a pretty cinematic intro credits. But seriously, the quest and the world of Final Fantasy, besides these few jabs at Enix, are really much darker than Dragon Quest. In part thanks to Amano's design, who even picked a few monsters in Dungeons and Dragons book, but also thanks to the events themselves. For example, when you get to the village of Melmond, which is close to the Altar of Earth, the village is in ruins, the townspeople are terrorized by a vampire, and there are gravestones within the walls of the town itself. As for the adventure in itself, Final Fantasy is pretty much based on exploration, as it was always the case back then, but if in Dragon Quest II, for example, you were mostly randomly searching around asking yourself, what do I do? Here the game guides us just a little bit more. A little bit. But as in most Japanese role-playing games, or JRPG for short, who says exploration says... Random battle! Yes, and they tend to appear quite often, like in any 8-bit JRPGs. Dear God, sometimes just one step and... a troll. In any case, here we have the series trademark. The heroes are lined up on the right and the monsters on the left, like in a football match. It really is the inspiration, by the way. And the fighting system is literally taken from Dungeons and Dragons, especially the magic system, but we'll come back to that. And like in all turn-based JRPGs, and I won't repeat it ever here, we manage the battles. You tell your guys what they'll do next turn, and you look at them go! In a pretty much random order. The attackers attack, and if they have enough agility, they can give more hits in a single turn. Which is a complete bliss, because in the beginning, they miss very often. Speaking of missing attacks, if your guys attack or cast a spell on a monster who dies before it hits, they will just bash the corpse and waste a turn. So each decision is strategic, even in the easiest battles. As for the magic spells, it's exactly like in Dungeons and Dragons. They are divided into magic levels, and each of these levels has its magic charges, which are very limited. You have to buy each spell at an insanely high price, and you can just buy 3 of them out of the 4 available. In Dragon Quest it was pretty much like the boom spell hurts, but here monsters have actual weaknesses. The fire and bolt spell, for example, will not do the same damage on every monsters, but they take the same magic charges. These charges are especially problematic for the red mage because he can use both black magic for attack and white magic for healing, but you know you don't want to use them too much because you don't have too many points and... Fighting monsters, of course, will give you EXP to boost your stats, including luck, because beating up wildlife in the woods brings luck. Chronopath doesn't actually believe that beating up wildlife in the wood will bring luck. Also, the game actually shows us the required EXP for a level up in the menu, which doesn't mean much for today's gamers, but is a big plus compared to Dragon Quest in my book. Just like the possibility of saving your game at any inn instead of having to go see a king for that. On the difficulty side of things, it's special. By exploring everywhere, you level up and win gold to upgrade your equipment, and actually few battles should make your life miserable. Even bosses generally fall within 3 or 4 turns. But the dungeons are a war of attrition, and eventually you start noticing that your reserve of 99 potions, remember, and your magic charges are starting to dwindle down. Or just like that, the game decides that all your team is paralyzed and you're stuck in a long battle. Or the complete opposite, big dragons can decide that, just like that, you stop existing. Or monsters that shouldn't give you any trouble otherwise have instant death spell which you have no way of protecting yourself, and you have no life resurrection spell because you have no white mage and the red mage can't learn it yet. And you have to manage to get back to the village on the other side of the world to resurrect your guys and On the tip side of things, well, the sleep spell works well again, but not as much as in Dragon Quest. The poison instant death spell too if you have the charges for it. The group therapy spells are more useful on bunches of monsters than on bosses, so let loose. Further in the game you will find pieces of equipment that can cast magic spells at will, like spells that can heal everyone or attack spells without costing any magic charges. Use them. They're also in the original, but the game just doesn't tell you about it. Also, the monk destroys everything. Seriously, at level 8 or 9, strip away his equipment and he will just be stronger. He's probably the strongest nudist monk on this side of gaming. At one point in the game you can buy the haste spell that can double your agility, and add to that an item that can boost your attack power. He can destroy any boss in the game within 2 or 3 turns. Same thing to the warrior who has access to the best equipment but costs a ton of money to keep great. As for the thief, well, he can easily run away from battle. Yay! But his real potential can be unlocked later on in the game. But okay, you might have noticed that for an RPG, I don't talk much about the story, and that's, well, it's because it's not that interesting, to be honest. In the end, there's a big "it was me all along" and the time-based plot twist that makes less and less sense the more you think about it, but compared to more recent RPGs, that's not what the game is about. It's more about the exploration of the world, walking through caves in a volcano, or ruins hidden deep in the ocean. Discover a flying airship from a lost civilization in the desert. Ah, glorious, glorious airship. It will help you find dragon people led by none other than Bahamut himself, who can unlock the full potential of your heroes. He is also in a graveyard, and the people buried here, well, I won't spoil it, but if you ask the people and the villagers around it, it suggests a pretty interesting answer. And yes, it must have been in the original, but Nintendo's American censorship replaced all the crosses by candles, which completely changes the meaning of the room and the dragon god. In a sense, Final Fantasy reminds me more of a game based on the first editions of Dungeons & Dragons than on the Final Fantasy games that will follow, that will add more elements that will give the series its own personality.
No, not now, guys. Go back to your boxes. Shh.
But despite the need to fight tens of battles to level up, the game always keeps a certain charm with the possibility to start anew with a new team and a new spell choices every time. And the fact that it's quite short by today's standards makes it one of the more replayable games in the series, especially if you talk about the remakes. Speaking of which, the game's got tons of them, and it's available pretty much everywhere in some form or another except maybe on a toaster or an Xbox console. In my opinion, the best one is the PlayStation remake you saw here, because changes are optional. You can run, characters can change their targets instead of bashing corpses, and there's the difficulty option. On easy mode, the game is almost a walk in the park. As you get more EXP, everything is less expensive, and mages have tons of magic charges. Other remakes have the easy difficulty by default, but bosses are harder. A classic magic point system like most JRPGs, and the added filler dungeons with bosses from other games in the series that Square Enix added while saying, "Buy our games, please! Nostalgia!" Yes, spoiler alert, Square Enix merged in 2003. The original Final Fantasy, you guessed it, sold very well, especially in the US actually, and for a few years, Sakaguchi will do nothing but Final Fantasy games. So, the original Final Fantasy is a game that aged better than you might think actually. It's not one of the best games in the series by all means, but it's definitely far from the worst. But what I'd like to know is, for those who played it, what was your team in the original Final Fantasy? Did you go the way of the thief, or did you go the way of the monk? Did you have a white mage? All this stuff. But as for the next game in this series, well, it will be a JRPG in space. And that's where it gets complicated. Because you see, for those of you who haven't been following me from the start, which I guess is most of you actually. Down Memory Lane is pretty much me talking about all the games in my collection and their release date order. So I basically go from the older games all the way to the more recent ones. And the next game is in here, which includes about 50 or 60 games or something. Now, I won't make a video review for every single game in here, I'm slow enough as it is. But a few games do tickle my fancy in there, so what I'll do basically is that before each game that interests me, I'll make a short overview of 5 to 2 games that don't really interest me all that much, to see what they are, and basically I might get surprised. So, and that's where I'll see you guys next time. So, until then, subscribe to my channel to not miss it, like me on Facebook, tell everyone you like about it, including your grandma if you want. So I'll see you guys next time.